Thank you. So delighted to be talking with the amazing Jenny Nordbak. We have way more to cover than we will probably get through. So we're just going to do kind of like a few sections, sort of like why choose crowdfunding, best practices for planning, and then talk about running the campaign. And then we'll open it up to all of you so we can hear all of your good questions and do our best to answer them. So let's go ahead and start with the basics. Jenny, why would you choose crowdfunding out of all of the possible options for funding your work?
So I'm going to make a bold assertion, and that is that I get a successful campaign for an author at literally any point in their career. So I think there are a bunch of authors who are like, I don't have the platform for this yet. Or there are authors who are like, I don't have anything that I want to make special editions for, or I just did special editions. What do I do? I think it's really easy to kind of look at the campaigns that are out there and think that you have to do exactly what everybody else is doing. But I get like literally, if you haven't released a book yet, I could still come up with a campaign as long as you have a finished book. And I didn't mean to immediately throw that out, but one of my biggest pieces of broad advice is not to start running a campaign for books that you haven't finished yet. You think like maybe you've got 100 books out and you think everything is going to go fine. It might not. And I think that is a thing that I've seen trip a bunch of authors up. So just broadly, finish the book first. Even if all the art isn't done or whatever, make sure the actual book itself is done. And then other pieces of just like broad advice are that when you're thinking about a campaign for Kickstarter, it's gonna be, it looks different, it feels really unfamiliar, but at its core, as an author, it's a pre-order. And I think that is the mindset that really is helpful for you and for your readers, for because you have to educate your readers if they've never seen a Kickstarter before. What is this thing? A lot of people mistakenly think it's a GoFundMe. And I think some authors mistakenly play into that by using words like donate to my Kickstarter or prizes or like these things that trip you up. If you think about it as just, it's a business model, it's a tool in your arsenal, particularly if you're wide, but even if you're a KU author, there are strategies for being able to use it that way as well. And so if you just, from a business standpoint, think of it as it's a pre-order and it's a product, and this is my marketing page where I get to sell it. I think that really is just like the most grounding mindset to get into when you're going into approaching it is like, it's not really anything new and fancy. The setup is different. You have to familiarize yourself with the tiers and all that kind of stuff. But as an author, you know what a pre-order is. Your readers know what a pre-order is. This is just the framework to set up a really tidy pre-order that's fun and exciting and like contained and has that social proof right there on display. There's built-in readers on the platform. People get excited about it. They get to feel like they are supporting you in a way that's meaningful and like isn't necessarily charity. Like they are supporting you as a business person and an author. And I think that's an important distinction to make. Um, so I think the like why and the what kind of campaign that you can do, you can do it as like a pre-order for something that isn't out yet. If you've got a brand new series that you're going to launch, that's an idea that you can do. You launch it with Kickstarter first with cool swag or special editions, or even just the book itself. You can do on Kickstarter before it hits any other retail platforms. If it's already on retail platforms, it can be a special edition. You don't even have to do the books themselves on Kickstarter. I've seen people do, I saw one yesterday where someone had crowdfunded a soundtrack for their series. Like there are all of these pieces that you can do that your readers get really excited about. And I think that is something that Kickstarter is, and Oriana's seen this, like super useful for, is like you're building fans. You're really reaching your fans in a way that is like building a community. And making them feel like they're a part of something and they're getting an experience that goes above and beyond just clicking the buy button on soulless Amazon and then moving on with their lives. So just, I think, I could list 100 different things that each of you could probably do with your books on Kickstarter. My advice is to not box yourself into it must be a foiled special edition that, it's a hardcover and it's whatever. Like, yeah, you can absolutely do those things successfully, but you don't have to. So, like, is there some other thing that you would be really excited about. Because if you're doing it because you feel like you have to, it's gonna be dragged out of you instead of like, I really want a plushie to go along with my book series. Or like think outside of the box a little bit and like give yourself permission to do that and spend some time on Kickstarter looking at other people's campaigns. Um, I'm just rambling at you, Oriana. So
No, this is amazing.
I've
I was
kind
like,
of,
oh, could I add? I have a thought, but I mean, you're doing great. You're doing great. I will actually, since you threw it to me for a second, one other thing when it
yeah,
comes to like deeply studying other Kickstarter campaigns, talk to your readers. Also, like this is an excuse and like a terrific way to like really strengthen the bonds between the writer and reader. So like ask them what they want. Have you always wished
people
I would
love a survey.
an audiobook or an animation or would you like the blue cover or the red cover? Even if you're always intending to do the blue cover, the act of having like responded to that survey will give your readers buy-in and make them more excited about anything that you're going to eventually do for them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like other ideas to think about, like with Bonkers, we do these group projects. So it's okay to include other authors. Like you can team up. If you guys all write a certain thing, you can do a group project. Make sure you've got a leader and you're really well organized and you know what the money split is going to be. And, think through all those things. I could do an entire separate class on how to run a group project. Um, but like don't feel like you necessarily have to be out there on your own with it. Authors do anthologies. You can do a group Kickstarter project. That's an option too if it feels like you're just out on your own in the void and it's scary to put yourself out there like that. So keep that in your back pocket as well.
You can also
Um,
go to other authors for rewards if they don't want to do like a whole campaign with you. Will they offer 5 signed copies of their book? Will they, can you commission them to like knit beautiful scarves or like if they're candle makers, whatever it is, the thing that they do, you can include them in your project and then of course hope that they will also help you spread the word about the projects.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like there's a growing community of authors who are using Kickstarter and are familiar with Kickstarter, and we do swaps and we're advice. And like it's definitely a good idea to plug into that community. And initially you're not going to know very much, but then you start being able to pay it forward and answer questions yourself. So don't be intimidated to like throw yourself into that. But another thing I was just going to say about the like why and just broad starting advice is like it's okay for a campaign to be really small. That doesn't mean that you haven't accomplished anything. Like you can have a $500 funding goal and like that still is awesome and you're getting to make a cool thing. You're getting to start building those super fans and they start from nowhere. Like everybody starts from nowhere and you gather those fans one at a time and it's really cool to see creators who have done numerous campaigns and they've grown. Or it's also okay to do a really big campaign and then, we're looking at a couple for next year that are probably going to be smaller than what we're about to launch in June. And that's kind of fun too. Like it can be more contained. It doesn't always have to be the whole shebang. So flex as your time and energy and everything else allows. Um, yeah. Okay. So I
Sorry,
think we,
I was going to the chat to tell people to follow the upcoming Bonkers project in case they're not
oh.
already all going to get notified about it. Um, okay, yeah, I think I'm trying to think if there was anything about that that I wanted to comment on. One small nuance, I think for most authors, you are running these projects like a pre-order, but like for legal reasons, you can't actually call it a pre-order on Kickstarter, but
Mm,
the conceptual idea behind that is that it's not actually already done. Like I think that's really good advice to have the book written, but you still need to send it to the printer. You still need to get the
yeah.
books, box them, and so it's conceptually like a pre-order. You're gauging your audience's desire for your product. You're setting appropriate print runs. You're understanding sort of like where this is going to fit into your larger work. But unlike terrible Amazon or something like that, it's not just click a button, get a book. Like you're
Yeah.
inviting people into the creative journey of making the thing. And it's important for everyone to know and understand and be excited about the fact that it isn't actually done yet. This is like on the road to creation.
Yeah, and once you have successfully run a project and then you sort of have your backer pool and you can reach out to them with updates, that's another continued opportunity to keep reaching out to them, probably even more so for like preferences or surveys or to give them a peek into the process, even if it's like boxes stacked in your living room. You're like, I think that is a thing that not all, but many readers sort of.
Oh no, I think you froze. Oh, that Zoom life. It's so good when this happens. I think that, are you
She's back.
back?
Am I still frozen?
You're back.
Oh, it's weird because nothing happened for me. I don't know why. Of course, years into our Zoom life, it's happening. Um, Let me know if it happens again because I couldn't tell. Am I
Um,
frozen again?
no, no, you're good. You're good. You're
Okay.
fine.
The next sort of broad category that we have is like best practices for planning your campaign and what to offer. So I feel like we can segue
Yeah,
into that.
I was about to do that when you froze. So yes, Jenny, can you share some best practices for planning a campaign?
So when you're thinking about tiers, that it gets kind of overwhelming for people of like how many, what do I offer, what do I put in the tier? So keep in mind your tiers are kind of your base entry points. And then you can offer as many different add-ons at the end of that as you want. So I would advise trying to keep your tiers relatively streamlined. Don't try to offer every different combination of everything in your campaign in the tiers. Offer like base options, and I'll get into what that means in a second. And then throw whatever add-ons you want in the background because people can then custom configure it when they get to the next screen. Um, when you're thinking about what your tiers should be, the starting point that I suggest is you want a really easy entry point for people who are budget constrained and want to support you. They can always just like donate $1 or whatever, and they'll still get the survey and be part of the campaign. But if they want, you know, something to feel a little bit more tangible, give a base tier, and that will vary depending on what you're doing. For us, it's generally the ebooks, or like this year we're adding an option to just we're doing like digital wallpapers and like the digital art. And then that gives them the ability to go in and add on random extra pieces that they want. So make sure you've got a tier that feels really accessible to an audience at large, or like somebody who doesn't know you yet and wants to sort of participate. They think what you're making is pretty. And sometimes those people will eventually upgrade later. Like when you send the surveys out, they'll add stuff on. They just initially aren't quite ready to commit yet. So make sure you've got an accessible entry point, and then have like I'm gonna try not to swear because I don't know if I should, but like an FU tier that's like have something really wild that's like unexpected. And it can be, don't make it something that's gonna like be ridiculously time consuming for you. But make it something like big and crazy and fancy and exciting. And for a campaign we're looking at next year, we're using it as an excuse to go to like somebody who uses traditional hand book binding techniques and like make this book that is a piece of art and list it on there for just what we paid for it to be supporting that artist. Or a lot of authors have like a hobby. They knit or they throw pottery or I don't know, what do you crafty people do? They make things. They're really cool that are intimidating to me. Offer a few of those as like a really cool special thing that is just you and has nothing to do necessarily with the campaign, or like it's okay to do that. It's a cool thing that like really connects you to your reader, but take whatever you're going to charge for it and then add to it because it's going to take you longer than you think it's going to, and you still have to ship it and all those other things. Annotating a book is a really common, like hand annotating a book. It takes forever. So if you're going to do it, don't offer too many and make sure you're charging enough for it that you're getting compensated for your time. I say that to my author friends every time, and then I get these text messages as they're annotating that are like, I didn't charge enough. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
I'm gonna I just want to emphasize two of the things that you said. For your low tier, below the book tier, it is a doing digital is a really, really good idea. So you're not saddling yourself or your backers with shipping for small
Yeah.
things. So digital wallpaper is lovely. Any kind of like digital art. You can also do like a 20-track playlist of songs you love to listen to while you write. You could do one short story. You could do a nicely designed PDF of like, if you like my work, here's 10 other authors that you might be into. Things like that for the small stuff. And then I want to share my favorite two examples of the FU tier from last year. Cassie Clare, best-selling YA fantasy novelist, she had for I think $300, which is not FU money, but she would write out longhand a quote from any of her books that you could get tattooed on your body. And Matt Dinneman, who does lit RPG like about zombies, for $666, he would kill you off in his next book, and for
Yes.
$737, he would bring you back to life. So I feel like both of those are just like delightful examples of like really bringing your readers into the world of your book. And so you might not have zombies, but I've seen people do. We'll name the dragon after your dog. We'll name the villainess after your mother-in-law. We'll name the hero after your son. Naming like
Character naming is
oh,
so
yeah,
fun. Yeah.
super, super good. Anyway, so things like that are
Or
quite
like you
delightful.
get your name in the credits at the end of the book is always a fun one. People love seeing their name in the printed book at the end. Or yeah, like just find a thing that they can participate in. And like maybe you don't have the readership yet where they want a quote of yours tattooed on their body, but this is where you're starting to build those fans. And like don't be scared to put yourself out there with that. And if it's not that, it who isn't still excited about like having a character named after them or um a cute little note from one of your characters or just like people do the coolest most creative stuff and the best place to find that is to sit and scroll through other people's Kickstarter campaigns until you start getting ideas of your own. um yeah, and then what goes in between that is obviously going to vary wildly depending on your campaign, but if you're offering the books, I would say, it's like the books as a set. We tend to offer them as a set depending on where you are in your career and what you're trying to do with your campaign. Maybe you're offering them solo. Just be careful because you can end up with so many different combinations of things. Like if you're an author who's going to end up with a bigger campaign, don't give yourself so many options that it's going to be a math problem and you've got 1,000 different combinations to fulfill. Try to like make it just a little bit more contained than that and do stuff that's like as a set and don't offer too many customizations. Um, and then, what we tend to do, so like our campaign that runs in June, as an example, we've got our digital wallpaper tier, we've got our ebook tier, and then from there, we've got like just the paperbacks, just the hardbacks. And then we have a swag box for each of those that contains all of the swag as an easy button for somebody who's like, I want everything, give it to me. And they don't have to click through things one by one on the next page. If they don't want everything, they can just do the books and add things on, or just the wallpaper and add things on. And those combinations are still available, but it means there aren't. I think you get decision fatigue, and you find this as you start, if you practice looking at other people's campaigns and backing other campaigns, you learn the backer experience. And the number of times I've noped out of a campaign that I'm excited, it's like these pretty dice, and I'm really excited. And then I start scrolling through the tiers, and I'm just like, oh, I can't. I don't understand what the difference between these is, and I don't have time to work this out. Like, I'm overwhelmed and I nope out. So don't do that to your backers. Give them a nice, clean experience and then let them customize it later, but at least get them through that screen. And just a quick note about that. Backers, it's really common for them to change their pledges, and lots of people cancel their pledges. So when you get that pledge, it's not a sale, it's not a done deal. It's like they've put it in their cart. It's like on Etsy, you can see like two people have this in their cart. They've put it in their cart until the campaign ends and their cart is actually charged. It's not a sale. And I know that's hard to think of it as, but you get people like it's disappointing when people cancel or change, but it does definitely happen during the middle of the campaign. So if it's happening to you, don't freak out. It happens to everybody. We've had days where we were negative. Don't, it's okay. Like it's not you. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good transition actually. So I think it's 12:53 in my time zone. Let's talk through sort of like the campaign itself, how it feels, the trajectory, like that sort of thing. And then I am just watching these questions roll in. Y'all are so engaged. I'm like very excited. So Jenny, talk about sort of how what it feels like, what creators should expect from the campaign itself, and then let's get into these questions.
Okay, the vast majority of the setup for success that you're going to do in your campaign happens before you hit the launch button. If you are scrambling to make changes and try to get people and try to sell it and whatever during the contained period of the campaign, it's probably not going to work and you're going to run yourself ragged. Ask me how I know. I've done it 2 years in a row. And we have been learning as we go. So before we even get to the campaign itself, the biggest tool that you can use is your pre-launch page. Get your pre-launch page up as soon as you possibly know sort of what your campaign is and you can get it approved. You can continue editing it in the background, and your backers can't, or your readers, nobody in the public can actually see what the campaign is. They can just see a banner and a couple lines of text, and there's a little button that says follow me. I don't remember, follow something, follow the
Notify on
project.
launch, something like that.
That magical tool means that the second you launch, all of those people get an email that says this project just launched, and it comes from Kickstarter, which I think it does something different in the brain than coming from the person who's trying to sell it to them. And that we have found is just like the most powerful tool that you can use. You can have it up for years. Like there's no limitation. You don't have to set when you're going to launch. We've changed our launch date repeatedly in the background. Nobody knows about it. There's this one board or video game that's been up for like 4+ years. I've been watching it. They've got 20,000 followers on there now. It is wild. So, like, get your pre-launch page up. If you take nothing else out of this, if you're thinking about doing a campaign, get your pre-launch page up. And I forbid you from talking to your readers about your Kickstarter project without having that pre-launch page up and including the link, because it's a net. It is a giant net, and you're a spider, and you're grabbing those readers in your net every time you share it. If you get one more follower, they're going to get that email on launch day, and that's what's going to set you up to succeed. So
I want to just also say
that
about that.
assuming, yeah,
Sorry, I
yeah,
was
go ahead.
confirmed from like we have data on this. There is a extremely high conversion rate from pre-launch followers to project backers, and it happens right away. They tend to back day one, like as soon as you launch, which is incredible for like having a strong first day, good for messaging, good for morale. Like truly, really, it's an extremely effective marketing method. And I will say best practice I recommend is having the pre-launch up for like a week or two, kind of as like a crescendo into the burst of your launch. It is true that I think I know which video game campaign you're talking about. They had an opportunity to speak at a huge conference and wanted just to have something like a CTA to announce on the spot, but they were absolutely in no way ready to launch. You can totally leave it up for a while, but I think the power of it gets diluted. If somebody signs up for something and then a week later they can grab it, they're like in. If someone signs up for something and then 3 years later they get an email, they're like, what even was this? I feel like it probably wouldn't have quite as powerful of an impact. So those are my Kickstarter.
Yeah, 3 years maybe, but I don't. Like 9 months for us. I know I'm arguing with Kickstarter here, but I
I
have a
know, no
spreadsheet
argument.
where I track
Whatever works
our
for you.
followers, and I track what we have done on that day. Did one of our authors send a newsletter? Did one of us make an Instagram post? And you can see the follower bump from each of those things, which means I can tell you your newsletter is your most valuable tool for grabbing readers. We get a bigger bump out of newsletters than we ever do out of any social media, even the posts that do really well. So definitely use your newsletter and author friends' newsletters to whatever extent that you can. Um, and yeah, so just assuming you have done that, your campaign is beautiful. It is a visual tool. So you can have as many words in there as you want. But again, if you practice looking through other campaigns as a backer, you're going to notice that you scroll to the pictures. And then if the pictures have caught your attention, you go back and look at the words in more detail once you've actually decided that this is something you're interested in backing. But make sure it's pretty and make sure they have stuff to look at and they have something to really sink their teeth into. What that is going to depend on your books and your campaign and everything else. But just whatever it is, even if it's not a particularly visual thing and you don't have special editions, give them something to look at. So I'm assuming you've set your campaign up beautifully. It's appealing. You've followed all the best practices, most of which we don't have time to get into. You've done your pre-launch page, you've gotten some pre-launch followers, you're ready to go, you hit the button. In the typical campaign, the first 24 hours really is like the big pop. And then there's sort of a taper off for the next like 2 days. And then the middle is just this like no man's land of trickling in. And it feels really slow after the first day. You get really excited on the first day and you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to go crazy. Look at all these backers. And then when it tanks, you start to freak out. And that's when a lot of people are like, ads, I need ads, or I need to, you start scrambling. Don't do that. Like it has followed its flow. We haven't found very much success with ads. I don't know very many authors who have found much success with ads for Kickstarter campaigns. Um, I could get into all the reasons for why I think that is the case, but there are certain authors with a big enough platform. If you're Cassie Clare, maybe ads are going to help. If you're not Cassie Clare, don't just start chucking money at it. Write it out. It's going to do that. Do your promo, keep getting that trickle. And this isn't every campaign, some grow in the middle. It's wild. And then the last like 48 hours, if anybody followed the project and didn't back yet, this is the other magic of the pre-launch page. They're going to get 2 more emails. They'll get 1 more. I think it's at the 48-hour mark, right, Oriana? It's like, hey, this is almost over. You're running out of time. You got to back this project. And that's when they start to freak out. And then if they still haven't backed it, it's either 6 or 8 hours.
It's
They
8
get
hours.
one last chance, guys. And that's when you get another pop. And so there's this cool website called KickTrack, KICKTRAQ. You can go into the data of any past project and see how many backers they picked up in a day, the backing dollars they picked up in a day. You can see like a breakdown of every single Kickstarter campaign. So go in there and play and you'll see almost everyone. There's like a boop at the beginning and then a boop and then it flattens out in the middle and then a nice little dip at the end or a bump at the end that's like less big than the beginning bump. You'll see ones that vary from that, but in general, that's what it's going to follow. And like, if yours is following that, there's nothing wrong. It's okay. Like, just write it out. Um, there's updates and stretch goals and whatever that we're like not getting really time to get into. Maybe there'll be some questions about that, but that in general is like the thing that you need to know about what to expect for the campaign. Should we just get into questions since there's so many?
I think maybe. Yeah. So how do we, Kay, do you want to ask the questions or how shall we do this?
Shall we do that? I don't mind. Okay, let's do that. I'm now going to go back to the start.
Oh, okay. I
I'm
thought
gonna hit the most recent while you look through.
Yeah.
How am I pricing out tiers? I have I love a spreadsheet, y'all. I used to work in project management. I have very elaborate spreadsheets. My business partner, Katie's husband, calls me Spreadsheet Jenny. So I have a spreadsheet that has like, when you're looking at your tiers, you can figure out you've got fixed costs, and then you have like variable costs depending on if there's more books, you pay different amounts. And so I've built a spreadsheet that shows me all of those costs built in and then breaks it down depending on different scenarios of how many backers we get. And that's how we're figuring out our pricing our tiers. The things to watch for are shipping. Don't just factor the shipping cost and assuming the shipping cost is maybe going to go up a little bit, but you also need like packing materials. You need to factor the fact that USPS might lose some of your stuff or like it might get damaged or whatever. So add some to your shipping cost. Kickstarter is taking a percentage out, so make sure you factored that into your cost as well, which is partly credit card processing fees and then partly we're paying Kickstarter for hosting us here.
Specifics of that, by the way, Kickstarter charges 5% of only successful projects. So if you run a project and it doesn't reach its goal, you don't owe anybody any money. And then Stripe, who processes our payments, they take a 3 to 4% variable based on like where all the bank accounts are in the world. So if you budget 10% for fees, you will be more than covered.
Yeah, so make sure you've got the 10% there. Make sure you have figured out what your shipping is going to look like and, added for packing materials and mess ups and whatever else. And then yeah, from there, I can't broadly give you advice because it depends on, are you doing print on demand? Are you doing a print run? Like, what things are you offering and how do those flex from there? But I think even if you are not obsessed with spreadsheets the way that I am, try to just lay it all out, like get it all out there so that you can see it. And if an easy metric like cost times 3 is simpler for you, I think that's probably okay. But I don't know that ours is that clean. It varies by tier. So I think you're better off getting into the weeds on the cost and then leaving contingency in there. Did you
Great.
come up with a good one, Kay?
I did. Do you have any specific tips for launching a Kickstarter for book 4 in a series as your first Kickstarter project? Is there anything that's different in that from book 1 or a special edition?
So assume that most of the backers have not read your first 3 books. And set your project up that way. Assume that you're pulling in new readers, and make sure you're offering those earlier books as part of the campaign, and don't put in your title book 4, because if I'm perusing Kickstarter and I see book 4 in the title, my brain goes, I don't know what this is. I haven't read the first 3, and it skips right over it. Make it the series or the title or whatever, and then once you get into the campaign. So certainly offer, and I don't know how many readers you have for your first 3 books. So if it's a lot, then make sure you're offering a tier that accommodates them as well. But assume that these are brand new readers and treat your campaign that way.
Great.
Sorry, I thought it was a different comment, but yeah.
I know you gave some tips already, but when you get into that like scary dead zone in the middle of your campaign, is there anything that you've heard of that has been interesting, some tips to keep those backers coming in?
Backer swaps is what we call it, can be helpful if you are in touch with other authors who have run Kickstarter campaigns and they are sending an update to their backers, usually about something else. They're sending a shipping update or, just checking in with their backers. They can include your campaign at the bottom of that. It's a really common best practice thing to do, just to like share the love. You can sometimes get a bump from that, particularly because it's a warm audience who is already familiar with Kickstarter. They've already got an account. They understand the deal. They're readers. It's obviously particularly helpful if it's somebody in your genre. If it's a children's book author and we've got an erotic romance campaign, you actually might get a surprising amount of crossover from that. I could think of more disparate examples as someone who buys a lot of children's books, but backer swaps can be really helpful. Newsletters. Your newsletter, if you don't have one, please go start one. But other authors' newsletters do newsletter swaps. Social media can kind of be screaming into the void, but it doesn't hurt to be doing it. Like post, do what you can. It definitely like keep supporting your campaign and keep trying to market it. But I think what I try to just like grab authors and be like, just stay the course. Like stick to your plan. You had a plan for marketing. Don't run around and try to like throw spaghetti at the wall and find something that's going to get you more backers. It's going to slow down in the middle, and like that's okay.
Perfect. I think that's so cool. I love the idea of backer swaps. I hadn't really heard it being called that before, and I really like it. Oriana, I don't know if this is maybe one for you, and it's probably a tricky one, so sorry if I'm putting you on your toes. Do you see a big difference in campaigns that use AI art versus commissioned art? Is it a problem? Do backers bring out their pitchforks when
Yeah, I actually thought you were going to ask me the one about how to get a project we love, which I can also answer. So I'm happy to talk about AI art. I will say I am just answering as Oriana, who works at Kickstarter. This is not like official Kickstarter word, so please don't I don't know, go put me in a newspaper. We don't have newspapers anymore. The way that I understand Kickstarter's AI policy, which I actually really respect, is that it is about radical transparency. Kickstarter is in the business of fostering creative work. And so although a lot of people, particularly in comics and illustration, wanted us to ban all AI forever, that obviously would be shutting down massive avenues of creativity that we don't even know what they are yet. So what we ask with campaigns is that you just disclose what you're doing. You know, are you using Grammarly and Microsoft Word, which are also AI? Have you used AI to do your art? Have you, you know, you wrote the book and then you decided actually you wanted it to be all about pirates, so you used AI to like change all of the dialogue, you know, like whatever it is that you're doing. We just want you to tell people the whole idea of Kickstarter is that creators get to say, here's the thing that I'm making, do you want to support it? And backers get to say, yep, yes, I do. So we want you to be giving the best tools to people to support, to decide whether or not to support what you're doing. That said, there's definitely like a minimum threshold of like, you can't just be like, AI, make me a calendar of naked ladies, and then put that up on Kickstarter without having done any work yourself. You definitely need to like have, yeah, like I said, a minimum threshold of like creative work. Okay, I don't know if you want to find it quickly, but we definitely have a whole page on the site about this, about sort of like how we thought about it, what our policy is, what we're saying.
We debated it at length in the Creator
Right.
Council because
Yeah.
we all come at it from so many different perspectives. And I think people don't even realize how many places AI broadly gets used in their daily life. So yeah, I appreciate that Kickstarter's policy ultimately is like disclose what you're doing with it, and you better as a creative be doing something that is not done by AI. Otherwise, it's not a good idea. Will readers come with pitchforks? That's gonna really I think if we had a bunch of AI on our campaign, we would get eaten alive, just being honest with you, given how well known the authors that we work with are and how strong some of the reader feelings are about it. But I have seen a bunch of authors successfully make really pretty campaigns with it, and it hasn't visibly been an issue. Maybe you're losing some backers, but maybe you're grabbing some because I don't know, like I think that's really going to depend on you and your readers. And
I think that's the critical part. Like, know your audience. That so much of doing a Kickstarter is about knowing your audience. And like, yeah, if there's a lot of people in your world who think experimenting with AI tools is fascinating and can lead to great results, absolutely go for it. But yeah, there are definitely, I feel like in this, certainly like, you know, I've at a lot of conferences, there's always a panel on AI. Like, I think people are feeling like they have to be like extremely for it or extremely against it. I think that will shift. But yeah, that's so if you know that your audience is extremely against it, you might want to.
yeah, without getting into any of it in detail, yeah, that
Yeah.
is as much as we can really tell you.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to touch on the sort of project we love designation, because I get this question we get asked at every panel we do all the time. I will say, so we have a curatorial team at Kickstarter. They are looking at all the projects on the site all day long, determining what we sort of feel is like the best of Kickstarter. And that's what we give those PWL designations to. It matters some. It does sort of like elevate your project in search results. It can often slot it into various macros and carousels around the site. It is not the whole story. People get extremely wrapped up about whether or not they have been tagged a project we love. For just like a very broad average, we track this in your creator dashboard, but for a publishing project, about 15 to like maybe 30% of your backers will come through the Kickstarter ecosystem. So this matters, but again, not the whole story. What that means is that by far the majority of your supporters are coming through your efforts, your networks. They're coming to Kickstarter from your newsletter, a YouTube that you did, whatever. They probably have never even heard of projects we love, let alone will have any clue whether you have one. So really what your focus should be is on making the best project that you can that will be the most appealing to your readers, and the rest will sort of happen as it happens.
Yeah.
100%. That's so true, Oriana. We are almost out of time. We've got one more question. Try and choose one.
I don't want to like go through the comments and answer them, but I know people won't necessarily see them if they sign off. But I'm just seeing these random questions. I'm like, I can help you with this.
I know there's so many brilliant questions. What I'm going to suggest actually is that if you feel like your question hasn't been answered because we've run out of time, is that what we can do is what we'll do is we'll send you out this recording and we'll send you lots of links and things in that email. But there is also an email address in there that you can reply to, and we can respond and make sure that you have got all your questions answered there individually. So just let me know when you get that.
And I will say, I'm not going to write my email address down anywhere, but it is my name at kickstarter.com. Please be gentle with it. I have a weird name and I'm extremely online. If you want to find me, I am findable and I will do my best to help you, or at least send you to our tech support or some other part of Kickstarter that can help you better.
Great.
Yeah, just I guess quickly, like I see somebody asking Facebook ads. I think I covered that. I don't recommend it, just as like a quick answer. Somebody asked about swags and merch and canvas bags and do people regret it? Be careful. If it's your first campaign, I recommend sticking to paper products as much as you can, because then you can do media mail and just they're less complicated. We're tackling shirts for something next year. I haven't done it yet. I don't know if the sizes and stuff, that's a level of complication that's probably like not 100 level campaigns. So I don't know that I would get into shirts. But if it's like a piece of swag that is like doesn't require options and is really straightforward, but keep in mind that a canvas bag is going to take you out of media mail. So that's just like quick advice that I would give on that. How can the dead zone be combated? I think we covered that. Oriana just covered that. Is crochet a good idea?
Go ahead.
Oh, is crochet a good idea for romance campaign, like crocheted book slipcase? Yeah, just don't get in over your head. Like limit it to the number that you could actually do, and don't just leave it open in case it goes wild and suddenly you are a factory producing crochet.
And think if it works with the themes of your book. Penny Reed has a romance series about knitting, and she did a lot of knitting patterns and that sort of thing. So that made a lot of sense for her. Another quick plug that I'm going to give before we run out of time. This is also not an official Kickstarter endorsement, but there's a Facebook group called Kickstarter for Authors run by Anthea Thorne Coyle, which is incredible. I really thought that I was like fully divested from Facebook, but I dip in every so often just to see what people are talking about. You have to be approved to join. It's about 4,500 people, and it is all of these questions all day long. Where do you get your NSFW?
It's a really supportive space.
Yeah,
and people are so kind and generous with knowledge. And I know a lot of you came from there. A lot of you came from there and Wide for the Win, similar like supportive dynamics. But yeah, highly, highly recommend. Anthea does such a good job moderating it. She personally is so supportive and such a wealth of knowledge. And yeah, especially for like campaigns of all sizes, highly, highly recommend that group. And I think Anthea has a book as well that I haven't read it, but it's got all the sort of just best practice categories that well, and yeah, so if you're looking for follow-up resources, that group, Anthea's book, Kickstarter has, Oriana has done videos in the past about this. Somebody asked for more of the 100 ideas besides foil books. Kickstarter has so many resources with ideas for this kind of stuff. Go do your homework. Don't, go do that base level research if it's a thing you're looking to do, because the information is definitely already out there.
And we do
I curate a publishing creator tips page. It has many videos of my face doing talks like this. Lots of, there's roundups of rewards you haven't thought of. There's how to build an audience for your comic, how to get your book into a library, how to make a good budget. I've tried to put a lot of stuff on there that I think is really, really helpful. Are we over time, Kay? Are you going to shut us up now?
Yeah, I'm going to just lot this down. No, I was just going to say thank you so much, everyone, for the questions and for answering each other's questions. It's so difficult to keep up with it all. But if you're in New York on Friday evening, we're also hosting an event with the Rip Bodice, which will be really, really fun. We've got 3 really, really awesome authors joining us. We've got Adriana Herrera, Melinda Sarah, and Lucy Eden all joining us in a panel with the wonderful Oriana. I'm not flying in from Scotland. I'll keep the ear.
You tried. I wanted to.
But it's going to be really nice. So if you're in the area and fancy coming down, it would be lovely to see you all there. And yeah, I'll be sending on the recording as soon as possible.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you guys.
Incredibly good questions.
I'm rooting for all of you. Do the thing.
Thank you, Jenny, for your being just a wealth of knowledge always.
Yes, Jenny, thank you so much.
You guys are the best. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.